Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Oh yeah, hopefully you can hear me. I don't know if this is actually working.
I can hear you now.
Oh, good. Right, that's okay then.
Hang on. Turn my phone to airplane mode. Stopwatch. Okay, cool. Right. Can you see me okay?
Yep, I can see you. We are actually live with sound, but there's a splash screen up, so anyone watching will only see that for the moment.
Okay.
I'm just trying to sort something out.
I need to move my scooter out of the way. I'll just tell the boys to be quiet. Boys, can you not come downstairs for a little while, please? Yeah, thank you. You were going to get lots of ping pong noises otherwise.
It happens. Okay. So in a minute, I'll click broadcast and we'll be out of practice mode and people will be able to join.
Okay, cool. Oh, I need my notes. That would help. Right, okay.
I may be trying something more clever than I should be trying here by trying to get Zoom set up on another computer so that I can demo how to do raise hand and things.
Ooh.
So we'll see if it works. I might have to abort the whole thing.
I'm sure people are used to many Zoom problems by now. I've heard some good stories about people taking their laptops to the toilet with them when they're in the meeting and not realising the video's on.
Yeah, people do that. There was one guy where I saw the recording of him standing up, having forgotten that he hadn't bothered to put trousers on. Oh, Nikki's just reminded me there was one lady who turned herself into a potato on the Teams chat with some special effect and couldn't work out how to turn it off. Right, so in theory, if I hit that, and I'm really lucky. Yeah, I agree. Okay, cross your fingers. I think that's actually worked, which is a small miracle.
Yay.
Okay, with luck, that will, yes. There we go. So Hello to everyone who's joined. We'll be starting in just a few minutes when I'll be explaining how we can actually make use of Zoom so that you can participate by raising hands, asking questions, doing things through the voice chat, and I'll do a brief introduction to our speaker as well, who you saw a moment ago, and I will ask for her video to start up. So hopefully you can all see a lovely splash screen at the moment, and you're all having a good evening, a very balmy good evening if you're in the UK. I think we've got a couple of people who aren't. We've got a couple of internationals this time.
Oh, how exciting.
And we will start in 2 minutes. So I'll just mute both of us for now. Now's a good time, by the way, to follow Cafe Sci tradition and get yourself a glass of wine, cup of coffee, pitcher of beer, whatever you happen to want to drink along with the speech. Yep, gin is definitely an option as well. I will not be turning on studio audience videos as yet because I haven't figured out how to do it without swamping absolutely everything. I can only turn on video for people in the audience if I promote them to panelists, and then we end up with a lot of panelists and lose control of the whole thing. So we can start explaining a little early. Right, so if everyone has a glass of gin, whiskey, liquor of choice, coffee, tea, cola, soft drink, water, if you're a healthy person, or any other beverage of choice, snacks are allowed as well, but please don't throw popcorn at the speaker. It's bad for your screen. We'll begin. So welcome to our third Cafe Sci, where we're trying to use some new technology. It's going to be slightly confusing because I was hoping it wouldn't do that. Let me take that one out. Right, I was trying to show you a separate screen so that we could all have a look and go through the features of Zoom, but that was a last-minute attempt and obviously has not entirely worked. So I'll skip that for now, and instead we will, unless, no. So yes, I'll skip that for now. What you will find is if you are on a desktop computer or if you're on an Android or iPhone, you should have options saying chat, raise hand, and Q&A at the bottom. Now, Q&A will allow you to open a window where you can ask questions. Chat will allow you to send messages in chat, and both the Q&A and the chat will be going to myself and to Dr. Katy Kennedy so that we can answer your questions. What will happen is I'll read them, I'll keep an eye on them, and I will rudely butt in if there's any urgent questions that need to be asked. If we're covering anything where Katy's asking for an answer from the audience or for feed in from the audience, as she's mentioned she might do, then if you raise your hand, I will just grab the first 2 or 3 people, promote you so that you can speak, so that you can give your answer. And the raise hand button is the one that you should see in the middle. And really, that's it for now. I hope you've all got your bingo cards ready. If you don't, you can always watch the recording later and play bingo then. There's 30 cards and they're all randomly scattered, so you can switch around and play again and again if you want to. And that's it for the how to use Zoom. So welcome to our third Cyber Cafe Sci. As far as we know, we are the first ones to be doing this. and we've been enjoying it so far, so we're planning to keep it weekly if we can get enough speakers roped in against their will. All of our speakers are volunteers, all of the hosts and coordinators are volunteers. This is entirely voluntary. I do want to thank anyone who does donate towards our running costs, because there are some, but please be assured it will stay completely free for as long as we possibly can do it. Originally, this Cafe Sci started out in a small town which was invaded by Martians called Woking, where it started at a lovely wine bar just by the station, then moved to the art gallery, and was planning to move to an Italian cafe also nearer the station again, but circumstances intervened. So following that, we decided to bring it online and see if we could give a way to get people together, give them a chance to chat, interact, and keep up the mission of bringing science to everyone, taking it out of universities, out of academic settings, and just presenting it to people, allowing discussion and open, frank exchange of ideas. So that's what we're trying to do here. We are new at this. There are some challenges that we're still working on, but we are getting better with each and every time. And I'm fairly sure with Dr. Katy Kennedy on board, this will be our best yet. One thing is that Katy did actually speak at a previous Woking Cafe Sci, and I'm told it was about, I remember it happening twice at previous ones. And the first one, I believe, was about 6 or 7 years ago, right when we were starting out. And that was after getting involved with a running club, which the then organizer of Cafe Sci, Chris Bohr, was running at the time for her research into motivations and exercise. Is that right?
Yeah.
Since then, you've been through the trial of doing a full doctorate into, what was it, effective exercise. Yeah. So that's what we'll be, or that's what Katy will be talking about tonight, how to enjoy exercise. So with that, I will hand over to Katy. Again, if you have any questions, if you want to say something, either drop it in the Q&A or raise your hand, and have a nice evening.
Hi everyone. So I have some beer, tea, Hogsback tea, local. So if you live near the Hogsback, you can pick it up. So yeah, please jump into chat if you've got any questions or comments. I've got a few kind of questions for you, so you can get involved a little bit. Hopefully make it a bit more interactive, because usually Cafe Sci in real life is actually very much to and fro, backwards and forwards between the speakers and the audience. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to work with the chat, but you know, let's do our best. Okay, so first I'm going to give a bit of background about me and my research, and then I'm going to discuss some of my more interesting findings, which kind of relate to how to enjoy exercise. Okay, so my first section, I wanted to actually ask a question of the audience first. So my PE experiences at school were not good. And there's plenty of evidence to show that people's PE memories are related to their future physical activity behaviour. So I wanted you to come up with your most gruesome PE story and pop it in the chat in one sentence. So if you've got some really lurid PE stories, then I want to hear the gory ones and we'll share them together. Okay, so my PE story. I grew up in Sydney next to the beach, which is great. I tell you what is not great is having a PE teacher who thinks that what would be fun for 15-year-olds is to run up sand dunes in summer. So there's me in my red pleated PE skirt, my wobbly white thighs, my lovely red pants made of polyester, having to run up sand dunes, and my face matched my pants. It was really not a very good introduction to how to enjoy exercise. And I think A lot of people have some really negative experiences about PE, especially older people like me. Maybe younger people might have hopefully some more pleasant PE experiences. So, sorry, go.
Yep, we have just had Scott, who I'm unmuting now.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so you've seen the question there. Scott, if you want to narrate that for everyone.
So we had a Scottish rugby teacher at our school who was quite an outdoorsman. Obviously, rugby's played in more inclement weather, and all of us were freezing. His solution for that was to pee on hands. So if your hands are cold and sore, obviously use your natural bodily warmth to reinvigorate them.
Thank you. If anyone else wants to weigh in, either drop a message in the chat or raise your hand. I'm just going to drop you back on mute for now, Scott.
That was that was pretty lurid. I'm not sure which is worse, running up sand dunes in summer or weeing on your hands. They're both pretty unpleasant. So yeah, not great introductions to how to enjoy exercise in later life, though. I think everyone will agree. So after that, that was the end of my running career for some time. I hated running after that. Then I was signed up to a half marathon when I was about 30, and I didn't train very well at all. Had a little baby, not much time to train, didn't train enough, hated every second of it. Gave up running for another 10 years. And then someone signed me up for another half marathon, and again I did not train enough. It was the hottest day in October on record. It was a really hilly route. It was awful. I hated every second of it. But I had 2 young children. I was starting a master's, and I knew I needed some form of exercise to stay sane, so running had to be it. So I did all kinds of things to enjoy running, to gained a social identity as a runner, listened to podcasts, read books and magazines and so on. And gradually over time, I started to love running. And that kind of led me to my PhD, because I wanted to share my love of running with everyone and make it more enjoyable. So my initial experience wasn't great, but I've learned to love running, and I would love to help everyone else to learn running as well. So that was the lead up to my PhD, and I did 4 studies. So one of them was called Running Commentary, a study of beginner running groups. And what I did was I went to beginner running groups, I gave them audio recorders, they ran around and did their usual thing, and I asked them every 5 minutes how they felt, something called the feeling scale, which is a number on a scale, and asked them why they felt that way, and got lots of data. That was fun, interesting. I lost people, couldn't find them in the dark, couldn't hear them. It was horrendous, but I got a lot of really interesting data from it. My next study was Resolve to Walk. I asked people to make a New Year's resolution to walk more. And I again asked them to fill in the feeling scale when they went for a walk, saying how they felt every 5 minutes. And then after 6 months, found out what physical activity they were doing, and also had an interview with them about their experiences. After that, my third study was Walk, Jog, Smile, which was, I developed a podcast based on the Couch to 5K program. So from what I'd read in the research, and also from my qualitative data from the running commentary study, I found that there were some improvements that could be made to the Couch to 5K program. So I made my own podcast, which was evidence-based, and did a diary study asking people how they found it and compared it with the Couch 5K program. So that was that. And then I had so much data that I did a qualitative synthesis. So I got all of the qualitative data from all of my studies, and I put them all together into a huge data set. And then I went and looked for patterns and ideas and themes. And it's probably what I'm going to talk to you about now. So this chapter was originally 90,000 words when I wrote it, so there's quite a lot to talk about. I think I ended up having it 40,000 words, still quite a lot of words. So I'm not going to cover everything in there, but just some of the maybe more practical stuff. Okay, so number 1 was the environment. So the environment included lots of different sub-themes like seasons, weather, time of day, scenery, exploration, inclines, and sound. So, seasons, hands up, who is enjoying the changing seasons at the moment? I mean, I know I am. Anyone? Type something in chat, talk to me, come on.
We've got hands going up.
Oh,
That's
yeah. I can't see
4,
that.
5.
Come on, all of you. It's beautiful
7.
weather. Oh, maybe people overseas aren't.
8. Yeah, it's the vast majority. At least 2/3 of the people in the audience have got hands up.
Maybe other ones are in Scotland peeing on their hands.
Possibly.
Okay, so participants really like to watch the changing seasons. So things like sunshine, freshly cut grass verges, almost felt like summer. These are some quotes I've got from my participants to illustrate some of the things I'm talking about. I didn't have that many people doing the study when it was colder in winter and terrible weather, but people did talk about the weather quite a lot as well as season. So one person said the best bit was it wasn't raining. So that was a really common thing that people said, was that the best part was that it was not raining, especially my walking study, because it had a really wet winter and people just got sick of having to go out in the rain. And so it not raining was a good thing. It's good to get the breeze through your bra. Yeah, I talk about wind in terms of being too cold, or also runners don't really like running in wind so much because it makes it harder, but walkers seem to have it more as an idea of being refreshing. So afternoon walk, blowing the cobwebs away. So that was one difference between runners and walkers, which I did find a few differences in terms of the environment. Time of day. So darkness was a big theme, obviously. So almost all of my running participants were females. And because it was a podcast-based program, most of them were, at least in theory, I'll come to this later, running by themselves. So darkness and the idea of being out and having it be dangerous was, a concept that did come up a couple of times. And interestingly enough, I think at the moment, women are getting very mixed messages. So we've had for a very long time the idea, this message given to us that you must not go out running at night by yourself because it's dangerous. And now suddenly we have this message, you must not go running unless it's by yourself because it's dangerous. And what are we as women supposed to make of this, eh? I would really interested if anyone has any thoughts they want to put in chat about these kind of very mixed messages we've got at the moment, which are hopefully temporary. Perhaps I can go back to women being victim blamed in the future. So also darkness was not always negative or a dangerous idea. So sometimes it offered safety from people looking at you. I did it Tuesday morning. It was dark, so I couldn't see anybody. And then my neighbours wouldn't see and think, what's that idiot woman doing? So people quite often went running in the dark or places where people wouldn't see them. But darkness was also, as well as being a safer time sometimes, was also a pleasant time. It was starting to get a little dark. A beautiful pink sky was one person's highlight of their run. So yeah, darkness was not just negative like you would think it would be. Scenery. So my participants talked a lot about scenery. Not my beginner groups because they were together and they weren't so involved in the environment, whereas people running by themselves, I think, paid a lot more attention to the environment. The best bit, I just love running alongside the river and seeing the nature reserve. But scenery was not always positive. People took in negative things as well. There was a dead rat by the road near my house. It looked like its head had been partly eaten by a bird. So yeah, paying attention to scenery is something that I emphasize on my Walk Dog Smile podcast because it has been shown to draw attention away from the negative physical sensations that you might be experiencing if you're a beginner runner and you're finding it hard, and instead focusing outwards seems, according to some research, to be useful in helping people to feel better doing exercise. Inclines. Well, okay, beginner runners do not like hills very much. The worst bit, the hill of death. She was really not very keen on hills. So yeah, most beginner runners didn't seem to like hills very much because it's hard and they felt like they should be running up them, but they found it too difficult. So my advice, if you're running up a hill, just walk it. Like if it's hard, just walk. Walkers had a different attitude towards hills. They saw it as a way to make it proper exercise. So walking was not really seen as like real exercise for most of my walking participants, which is weird because they signed up to a walking study. But walking had to meet certain criteria in order to be called exercise. It had to be up hills or a fast walk or a long walk. We've done a proper walk this week. Change our shoes and march up to into the hills. So let me just have some of this delicious beer. How is everyone? Talk to me, chat, come on. I feel like I'm all alone here. Okay, so sound is another aspect of the environment. And actually, I think that's really relevant to what's going on at the moment. So I keep hearing people say, and including me, about how there's no road noise suddenly. So stick your hands up. Can't see the hands, so James has to tell me. Stick your hands up if you have noticed a huge reduction in road noise recently.
That's at least half of the audience, me as well, and we live just down from a busy London road, so yeah, it's dramatic. But one thing that's just been brought up was if you look at your feet, the hill doesn't feel so steep on inclines.
I did have another participant say that actually. So the interesting thing about sound is that background sound seemed to be really invisible in terms of how people didn't talk about it during most of my studies. So my running commentary study was so noisy. Transcription was a nightmare. There were helicopters, there was a flight path, and over every single group I went to, there were like grass cutters. It was so noisy out there and no one really commented on it. And again, it was very similar with my other studies. People didn't really talk about background noise. I suppose it was background noise, and now it's suddenly gone. That's when you start noticing it. So you don't hear a plane go past, or you're like, oh my god, a plane, and the roar of the motorway is not so obvious now. So that was a really interesting thing, because obviously it does affect how people feel, but people just don't really notice it and they don't really talk about it. So it's interesting. So we should enjoy the silence right now. We should enjoy the peace and quiet and the calm, and we should listen to that bird song, because we can hear it now. The cars have stopped drowning them out. I heard so much bird song, beautiful. The last bit about sound is music. So I'd find it difficult not to listen to music was a very common thing expressed by participants, especially beginners, especially running alone. They found that they need something to take their mind off it. And there's quite a lot of evidence to show that music can improve your mood, and also that it can improve how you feel during exercise as well, especially if you use particular types of music. So that would be a top tip, would be to run with music in order to enjoy it more, or even to walk with music. Walking with music is also really nice. So my beginner running groups, because they were running with other people, they didn't listen to music, because that would be a bit rude, obviously. So you could have a silent disco run, but yeah. But what they did was some of them sang together, which I thought was really delightful. I felt better running longer when we were singing. So this group was singing Old MacDonald Had a Farm in order to take their mind off how they felt during running, which I thought was wonderful. Chris is saying he loves hills and hates them. He listens to Radio 4. You run group is singing. Interesting. So I think it wasn't deliberate, it wasn't obvious, and it wasn't something that running group leaders kind of decided to do. But I think actually it would be a really nice thing for people to do together. Yes, exactly. Armies marched on song. That is true. I did actually have a bit about in my thesis about rhythm and how using it when you. So if you're running together with someone else, there's a rhythm in your running that you kind of sync together. But also if you add music to that as well, then you have a second way of synchronizing with someone else. And that is apparently improves social cohesion. So that's another really good reason to sing when you're running, or you just sing to yourself like I did. Okay, so we're talking about social factors next. Chariots of Fire. I don't think you'd sing Chariots of Fire. I sing Eye of the Tiger during races. I can never remember the words. Social factors. So there's different aspects. Exercising with others, exercising alone, social encounters, dogs, I have to check the time, Oh God. Self-consciousness and humour, fun and games. So running together, people found that it was much more pleasant running together when they were in beginner running groups. It's so much nicer running with other people, because I've tried to do this program so many times. So that was quite a common opinion expressed by people, that they found it difficult running by themselves, and that it was harder when they were running by themselves. But being with other people, exercising is not always positive. So a walk with whining children was described in quite negative terms by some of my walking participants. Chris, are those the words to Chariots of Fire? It's not even a song, it's a tune.
I think they're meant to be the words. I was just going to say a walk with whining adults is even worse.
Oh, that is true. Yes, we're walking with whining anyone, or walking with heavy shopping, like that's really unpleasant. So all of the research done on walking and how people feel during walking is being done in a lab on a treadmill, and that does not show the real context of a lot of everyday walking. People go, oh yes, walking is, everyone feels better during walking, but actually, yeah, chuck in like some 5 bags of heavy shopping from Sainsbury's or some complaining toddlers, and it's suddenly not quite so pleasant. So running alone or walking alone, people did talk about that being pleasant. So it's nice to do what you want and walk at your own speed. There was also some stuff as well about people in beginner running groups feeling, you know, like they were at the back and feeling like they were too slow. So some kind of like social comparison going on there. And one of my participants said, I enjoy my me time. And I think that was a huge reason for some people to exercise, was to have a sense of escape and to get away from everyday kind of like stresses and jobs and kids and so on, and have some time and space just for themselves. And I think right now, people might be in need of that. Just a suggestion. So, social encounters. This is again really relevant to our current strange, weird lockdown, unprecedented situation. There's a lot of bingo words right there. I'm trying to remember all of them. So this is a really interesting finding of mine. So some people said that the best bit of their run was like these really small social encounters. So best bit was waving at a friend who drove past me when I was running. Didn't even say hello, didn't even talk, just waved. And that little tiny bit of social interaction was the best bit of her run. Having a random man cheer me on as I passed his house, ha ha ha. So a lot of humour and kind of silliness came out of the Walk Dog Smile diary studies, because it was just like they ran quite a lot and they gave me lots of feedback, and quite often the best bit were these tiny little social encounters that were sometimes humorous. So I would encourage everyone, if you do go out, obviously everyone's trying to be socially distancing, blah, blah, blah. But if you do go out, yeah, smile, say hello, like, you know, make a tiny bit of conversation, because actually it makes everyone feel better if they're out walking or running or cycling. And if people are rude and ignore you, then that's their problem.
Okay. We've just had a question come in.
Yeah.
So did you assess the variance between different character traits, whether people were introvert, extroverted, and so on?
Absolutely not, I'm afraid. No. Yeah, it'd be an interesting thing to look at in terms of whether someone wants to run by themselves versus with a group. But no, I didn't have time to do it. I mean, I had like lots of participants had to take measurements and get them to fill in questionnaires and give consent and so on, like all at the same time. They all arrived late, and then had to give them audio recorders. So there was absolutely no way I could give them any more questions than I already did.
So something for the second doctorate then.
Doctor. Yeah, I think there might be a little bit about personality, but I suppose there might be some stuff in the literature about joining groups and personality characteristics, which might apply to running as well. Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, some people did. I mean, most people, the other interesting thing was in my running study, Walk Dog Smile study, was that people would listen to a podcast, and I thought they were doing it all alone. But in fact, there were a lot of occasions when they were running with a daughter, or their husband was walking the dog in the same park. So that was actually super interesting, that I assumed they'd be alone, but in fact they chose to be with other people. I don't know whether it was that safety issue thing again, but some of them said it was the best part of their run. There's one quote here, running with my daughter made the run more fun. So I was quite surprised about that, but there was another paper about Couch 5K versus Zombies Run. And again, when I dug into the details of that, they also found that a third of the participants were running with other people, even though it was a podcast you could do alone. So yeah, so a lot of people choose to run with other people. They might run alone, not by choice, even though some people do like that me time. So yeah. Chris has said, when I'm trying to run to improve, I prefer to run alone, so I'm good at my own pace. When I'm running for enjoyment, I prefer to run with friends. Yeah. So, okay, so running with other people increases your enjoyment.
And we've got one other one asking about where you got the painting from.
Oh, I got it from an art gallery in the Isle of Wight by a lady who's dead. She's got some kind of Greek name, but she's not Greek. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. It's nice, isn't it? Yeah, I love it. It smells amazing. It smells really good.
Thank you.
I'll put it on Twitter if you like. If I find out her name, I'll put it on Twitter. At Katy Lee K. Yeah.
We'll share it if you put it up there.
Okay, jolly good. Right, so I got lost now. Oh, so small social interactions are not always positive. So I got harassed. It sounds stupid, but I got really anxious today. So I did have a couple of participants say that they either felt unsafe or they got harassed or something like that. So yeah, these little social encounters, they were mostly positive to my surprise, but a couple of them were negative. So dogs. So again, people ran with dogs surprisingly often. So I've had some quite negative experiences running when there's been dogs around, but some of my participants love dogs. They like to go and interact with other people's dogs, and they either took their own dog running or they borrowed someone else's dog to take running. And sometimes that was the best bit as well. So that was quite a surprising finding. I ran with my parents' dog. She had a fabulous time too. I think she thought we were squirrel chasing together. Obviously, like with whining children, you do get whining dogs. The dog was a pain in the ass, so he really disrupted my run, but he hates the rain. So dogs and people both hate rain. Let me check the time. Okay, so self-consciousness. So I was talking a little bit about this earlier, about people running in the dark, maybe because they're too self-conscious. And there's a concept called the open person by Goffman. And one researcher has linked that to the idea of runners being an open person. So they're highly visible. And again, this really relates to our current situation because I don't know about you, but I mean, Twitter was driving me nuts and social media is driving me nuts in terms of all this stuff about runners and are they dangerous and how often should they run. And I think we all feel very, very visible as runners, particularly at the moment, because you're very conscious that maybe people are watching. And I think runners have always felt like that, but I think we probably feel like that even more so at the moment. So the last run I had was hard and I felt I must look ridiculous running so slowly. I felt slow and stupid. That was quite a common thing for which say like they felt slow and then they looked dumb. And so, you know, there wasn't really anything positive about being self-conscious, really. It was also linked with the idea of fatness. So one woman said she felt too fat, so she ran in the park. And so the park was a safe place for her, which is kind of funny, maybe not at the moment. So this whole idea of having a social identity as a runner is very positive in terms of things like park run and running groups and running friends and running buddies and getting out for a run because you're a runner. But by the same token, this social identity of being a runner at the moment is not particularly a great thing for us. So yeah, maybe something to talk about later on. So if anyone's got any thoughts, pop them in the chat or put a question up. Humour. So humour was a really big thing again. So the little social interactions were the main source of humour for my Walk Dog Smile participants, but the running groups had quite a lot of laughter and games. It's just a really good laugh, really, said one participant. So they played games and it was a real source of a lot of humour, which took people's minds off how uncomfortable they were. So some of my participants during Walk Dog Smile came up with their own sorts of games. So I think that's a really good way of making the time kind of like more pleasant. So discomfort. I would like a show of hands, please. I don't know how many men are on here, but How many women on here have had problems with their running kit malfunctioning? And actually probably men too. I don't really know what it's like to run as a man, but I can imagine men have similar trousers falling down. And
it's over half of the women in the audience.
The other ones probably aren't runners. My knees and hips started to hurt, so I was afraid I'd have to quit. Therefore, I bought running shoes. Still, my breast bands were painful, so yesterday I bought 2 good sports bras and wore one today. It was great. So whenever I talk to people about this particular finding, people who do go running are like, oh my God, yes, my trousers fall down. I'm trying to find a comfortable bra is really difficult. And so running is a very high intensity activity. Even if you run slowly, if you're not that fit, it is a very high intensity activity. And it puts a lot more stress and strain on different bits of your body. So having comfortable clothing, although it's a cheap or free activity, it is important to kind of invest in comfortable clothing. It doesn't have to be expensive, but it has to be comfortable, basically. And I think as a beginner, it's hard because you don't want to make that financial investment, but it's kind of, if you don't, then it might be really uncomfortable. That's it. My trousers are falling down. My bra's falling out. That was someone who chucked on their old chucky bottoms from Sports Direct and had any old bra on. I'm going to need a wee. So again, it's a high intensity activity, and bodily functions are like quite a big source of discomfort with people, and niggles as well. So my Walk Talk Smile participants really struggle with injuries, and try, as a beginner runner, knowing whether it's a niggle or an injury, whether you should rest, whether you could go through. Top line on bingo card.
Right, we've got a winner. Your prize will be whatever you've got in the liquor cabinet. Just open a nice bottle. Congratulations.
Okay, so effort. Again, to discomfort, -5. So -5 is as bad as you can get on the feeling scale. I want to stop. I don't like this. Not only is my breathing and my overall, so I can't read my own writing, but not only is my breathing, my overall fitness a problem, but my legs are aching. If I was by myself, I would have stopped now. So this is my poor beginner running group participant who felt slow and felt like she was coming last, and she would have stopped, and maybe she probably should have done, to be honest. And if she's running by herself, maybe she would have done. But there is a huge idea that running should be hard, and I think this is kind of very much fed into by the running industry and getting PBs and having a Garmin and, you know, always pushing for like go faster and longer. And actually, especially for beginners, it's a really bad idea, basically, because if it's uncomfortable, why would you keep doing it? So stop and walk, like, yeah, just make sure that you feel okay while you're running. It seems like a simple concept, but beginners have this whole idea that running should be hard, which then gets in the way of them actually feeling good during running. And I think at the moment, with the whole weird, strange lockdown thing going on, maybe we should all slow down a bit, stop, take some photos, enjoy running, enjoy being outside, enjoy the bird song and the lack of road noise. You know, we're not training for anything because there's nothing to train for. So if you like running fast, then go for it. And otherwise, just get out there and enjoy it, because hopefully, you know, we can keep running. But yeah, beginners, like, just take it easy. So some of my runners did get to the stage where it wasn't too much effort. So effortlessness was a really nice concept for runners. I forgot that I was running and started thinking about other things, which felt more relaxing and easier. So not many people got to this stage, unfortunately, because it is quite hard when you first start out, especially if you think it should be hard. But this woman got to the stage where she could run automatically and she had a sense of flow, and then she could take her mind could wander. And mind wandering is a really nice thing to be able to do when you're exercising. So, okay, I have finished my talk. I'll just very, very quickly, I've got a little bit more time, and then we can go to Q&A. I've I'm writing a paper at the moment about the importance of the end of an exercise session, because I think it's kind of quite critical. So there's a thing called the peak and end effect in behavioral economics, where the overall evaluation of how pleasant something is, an experience, is dictated by the peak, which could be the peak high or the peak low, about how good or bad you feel during the experience, and how you feel at the end of the experience. So they've done it in loads of different contexts, like colonoscopies and God, I don't think of any other ones. Loads of like queuing, that kind of thing. So there's two different ways to make an experience feel better overall. So one is to improve the peak, or to bring the peak low up to be higher. And another way is to make sure that the end is pleasant. So for running, it's a very goal-directed activity. So you're usually running like a certain distance, or you're running to a particular place. So I've got lots of stuff to say about running routes and how you should make the end pleasant. Maybe you don't finish on a hill unless you absolutely love hills, or you have to. I'm not sure what the thing is with cool downs, whether people call a cool down part of a run, or whether that's a separate thing. I would really like to hear people's ideas about whether cool down is part of a run, or whether it's its own entity.
So we've just got a question related to your last little bit. Does the zone exist?
The zone. So the zone relates to flow. Really, that's what the zone is. It's when you're in a state of flow. So, oh god, no, I'm not going to even say his name. The Czech bloke who invented the concept of flow. So the idea of flow is that time slows down, and that you are completely in the moment and focused on what you're doing, and you're it's a very pleasant state, being in a state of flow. So yeah, being in the zone is the same as being in a flow state. And I think beginners really struggle to reach that flow state because it's just really hard work, and they haven't really had enough experience to get there. So put your hand up if you've ever felt in the zone or in a flow state.
So that's just over half already. I know I have, not while running, but certainly at other times.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not exclusive to exercise. So exercise is just one place where you can have flow. So video gaming is a really big source of flow, which might be why people get really addicted to it and spend so much time. There's my kids upstairs. So yeah, I think in the zone also has some kind of concept of achieving kind of at a relatively high level. So you're not usually in the zone when you're just plodding along, maybe. So maybe you need a certain level. So the runner's high is another really interesting thing. In fact, I think I talked at one of the cafe sites before about the runner's high, and the story of the study of ferrets and dogs, and they measured the different chemicals in their brains. So the runner's high again is a bit controversial because they don't really know how it might work. But that's kind of different to being in the zone. So a runner's high is, in the zone is maybe more relaxed and a different attentional focus, whereas a runner's high is like a feeling of like euphoria. So I actually wrote a blog about this. So if anyone wants to pop on over, I can't remember when it was, I'll link to it on Twitter or something.
Yeah, if you drop me the link, I'll share it as well. Okay. We've just had a comment from Giselle about the zone.
Oh yeah. I seem to get in the zone when the combination of physical and mental exertion, like rock climbing. Yes. I'm not sure that running requires that much mental exertion. I don't know, because it's a very automatic thing. So the idea of being in flow means that you're not really necessarily thinking. It's like a different attentional state in a way. So yeah, but maybe it's being in a particular environment. So rock climbing, you have to focus really hard on what you're doing, I'm assuming, so you don't fall. I'm terrified of heights, so I'm never going to go rock climbing. So yeah, I'm not sure about the mental exertion. I mean, maybe if you're trying to keep to a particular pace, if you're like doing an interval session or threshold session, then maybe you might get in the zone because you're really, really focused on what your body's doing and how fast you're going. So that might be a possibility. Yeah. I think there's a question there, James.
There is. Exercise improves your immune system, but too much can weaken it. So what would be the optimal weekly amount of running and walking?
I'm not that kind of doctor.
And then we've got another one which is more relevant to you. Do rewards after exercise help raise the high?
Do rewards after exercise? I don't really understand the question. What kind of reward do they mean? Like something like jelly babies?
I'm assuming it's anything from a pint of beer to chocolate to nice meal to foot bath, just something separate from the exercise.
Oh, I see. Or a medal, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I have to think about that for my paper, actually. So there's like the end and then there's after, and the after stage seems to, or the end, towards the end and the after stage seem to be when people start to consider whether they've met their goal or not. And that's when they get a sense of achievement. And the sense of achievement was a massive thing for all my runners. So they felt a sense of achievement at getting out the door. They felt a sense of achievement at getting halfway. They felt a sense of achievement at finishing. And for my Walk Dog Smile participants, because I followed them throughout the whole program, the end of the week was a big achievement for them. And the end of the program, wow, they just went mental. They were so pleased with themselves. They were so proud. So in terms of that, there was a real reward for them. They got feedback from Strava for, getting PBs and so on. I know I say, people shouldn't push themselves too much, but actually it was a real source of pride for them that they could literally watch themselves improve week by week. So that's one kind of reward that you have. But yeah, making the end of an exercise session seems to be, especially beginners, it seems to be a good motivator to keep going. So lots of beginner running groups clapped at the end. So I'm doing some online fitness class at the moment, and yeah, there's one class where the teacher just claps everyone at the end. I find myself clapping. I'm like, what am I clapping? But it's really nice to have like a celebration. So I think that's one reason why races are so addictive and people love races. It's not just pushing yourself, it's getting a sense of achievement, and everyone's happy at the end. You get a banana and a flapjack and a Mars bar, and if you do a really good race, you get a medal and people say congratulations and everyone claps and is happy. And so there's lots and lots of rewards at the end of a race or after the race, which you don't get during the race, because during the race it's usually painful. So there might be one reason why people continue to do racing, not just because they want to, get a sense of achievement for getting a particular time.
Couple of other comments. So many runners aim for a time. Is that almost universal as a motivator?
No, I don't think it is. I think it's probably a cultural thing in a way. I wonder whether certain cultures are more, performance oriented than others. It would be really interesting to do some cross-cultural studies, actually. Although running in itself is kind of a bit, culture specific. Yeah, I mean, it probably is a motivator to some extent, but so one thing I didn't get time to talk about was people's perceptions of themselves getting older and slower. So I had this thing called Good for Age, where people could reframe themselves as not getting older and slower, but being good for age. And I think that's a real issue. If people have had 20 years off running and they suddenly want to start again, and they realize that they're 2 minutes a mile slower than they were before, then that's a real demotivator. So I think you need to be careful with having goals which are, performance oriented, because you naturally perform worse as you get older, as I found out. But it's what's the alternative, hey? So I think there should be lots of different motivations. So for Chris, running with other people is a way to enjoy it more. For someone else, running to escape from their family might be another way to enjoy it more. And I think you should have as many different motivations as you can find. So, and actually, yeah, at the moment, I'm not going running fast. I'm going out and I'm taking photos and I'm enjoying the weather and being outside and just, you know, watching spring. I mean, I think that's a really big motivator for me at the moment. I couldn't care less. I'm not training for anything, couldn't care less how slow I am, but don't bother logging out, I just log the mileage. So, yeah, I think if you want to keep going over the long term, then it's really good to have goals and to train and to have targets and to have certain periods where you might be like, you know, really going for it. But I don't think you can keep that up forever. And I think at some stage you need to bring in other ways to enjoy exercise. Yeah.
And we've got a question from Daryl. Is a tight schedule crucial to getting more exercise in, or is fitting in more exercise on an ad hoc basis viable for long-term success?
Sorry, I kind of, could you repeat that question, please?
Yep. So I think it's is having a carefully planned out strict schedule crucial to getting more exercise, or does doing exercise on more of an ad hoc basis work for long-term success?
I'm going to be really annoying and say that depends. I think so. The evidence kind of shows you should run early or do exercise early so nothing else gets in the way. Having said that, I hate running first in the morning. Can't stand it. I can't do anything without coffee. So it depends on. I think you should prioritize exercise. And that probably does mean scheduling in, at least in your mind, when you can fit it in. And if you don't prioritize it, then you won't do it, because everyone says they don't have time to exercise. And yet presidents manage to train and complete marathons. So everyone does. It's a matter of where you put that time, which I'm not saying that people don't have an awful lot of competing priorities. And sometimes those priorities are going to be more important than exercise. But if exercise as a long-term thing in your life is important to you, then you have to schedule it in and protect that time. Having said that, there's lots of different ways that you can include exercise. I mean, you don't have to go for an hour run. You could, I mean, maybe not at the moment, this is a bit of a bad example, but I've done things before when I needed mileage and I've just put the dinner on and run around the block like, you know, 20 times just because I need some miles. I'm actually quite goal oriented in terms of the number of miles I run every year, although not this year because it's a bit different. But so, I mean, when I've been camping with my kids when they were younger, I'd stick them in the playground and I'd run around the playground. There's lots of different ways you can fit it in, but you have to make it a priority in your life and you have to think of it as a long-term part of your life. And I mean, for me, if I don't exercise, everything falls apart. I can't, it's my way of making life go well. And I think for a lot of people that is that way. And I don't know how people cope at the moment without exercise. I really don't, because everything is very stressful, anxiety producing, and exercise does decrease anxiety. It improves depression. There was a study out today, in fact, I think I might have linked to it on Twitter, where they looked at people with okay mental health, and they found that mental health still improved if they did some exercise even a month later. So there's massive mental health benefits. I think at the moment everyone is quite concerned about mental health in general. It's a very stressful, traumatic time for everyone because things are changing so quickly. So honestly, I mean, even a walk is fine. A walk is absolutely fine. People don't have to get out and run. And yeah, I think I think at the moment we're allowed out for our however long a day. It's not really official, but we're allowed out once a day, and we should make the most of it. And yeah, it's really nice to see people out, actually, like little kids on bikes and stuff you don't normally see. So in a way, it is actually good to see people appreciating exercise a bit more. Having said that, apparently, according to Fitbit data, step counts have been dropping quite a lot because people aren't doing the normal everyday things like walking to the train station or the bus stop that they might be doing, or walking around at work, walking upstairs, that sort of thing. So I think maybe at the moment, if you do quite a lot of incidental exercise, like walking to the bus stop or whatever, then maybe you have to substitute intentional exercise, because if you work from home all the time, then that does encourage quite a sedentary way of working, really. I mean, unless you live in a massive palace and you commute from the East Wing to the West Wing, you're not going to be doing as many steps as you are if you work in an office normally. So maybe it's something to bear in mind, is that you have to be intentional about building exercise into your day. So going for a walk at lunchtime or going for a run after you finish work, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Thank you. Right. I think we've mostly done the Q&A, so if anyone does have any more questions, you've got a few minutes while I blather on about the next Cafe Sci. So currently, the next one planned is at the end of the month. We are looking to fill the next couple of weeks as well. So if you know anyone who'd be interested in speaking, please do get in touch and let us know. Let me just sort something out quickly. There we go. Yeah, get in touch and let us know, or if you'd like to speak yourself, we have a very broad definition of science. It's essentially anything where there's a vaguely scientific approach to the research, so please don't be intimidated by Dr. Katy Kennedy here, who has done the research properly. We do run, or will be trying to run, every week, and hopefully we'll see you at a future one. Katy, thank you very much. Unless there are any other questions coming in now, which I don't think they are, thank you for a wonderful presentation.
Wait. Oh. I forgot to say sprint finish, and I can't remember if there's anything else in the bingo card.
I'll just try and find them quickly. I've got them somewhere. I think you mostly covered it, and we did have a line already. I haven't seen any houses come up, but it's a start.
You weren't paying attention.
Feeling scale, you covered. Unprecedented, sprint finish, weird, strange time, challenging, lockdown, social identity.
Challenging, yep. Social identity did, yeah. Lockdown did.
Effective. I'm not sure you said effective. Trousers falling down, you mentioned. Social encounters, sports bra, and virtual. So I think you covered enough of them. Okay. Thank you, and thank everyone for coming along.